Thank you all for joining our webinar, The Key to Implementing SAP SuccessFactors in the Public Sector Intelligent Enterprise Suite. My name is Alana Robbins, and I will be your host this morning. We have a really great webinar planned for you today, presented by the wonderful Heather Kuligowski and Brian Myers. It is now 11 a.m., so without further ado, let's get started. So before we begin, I just want to go over a couple of things. Today's webinar is being recorded, and you will have a copy of the recording in a follow-up email. So if at any point you need to drop off, you can finish watching it, or if you'd like to rewatch it at a later date, or share it with a colleague, you're more than welcome to do so. We also welcome you to ask us questions. Over on the right-hand side of your screen, you're going to see a little question box. You can drop your questions right in there at any time during the presentation, though we will be doing questions at the very end. We've reserved about 10 to 15 minutes to answer those questions. If we aren't able to get to all of them, do know that we will also be answering them in the follow-up email. So you will get your answer there. And then last but not least, at the very end of the webinar, we have a survey that's going to pop up. And we really value your feedback, but we also like to take an opportunity to ask you what it is that you'd like to hear from us in the future. Are there any webinars that you would really like to hear? So let us know. So this is our agenda for today. Firstly, we are going to do a brief reintroduction of Invinio LSI, and then we're going to jump into the intelligent enterprise and how SuccessFactors really fits into that. We'll also do an overview of SuccessFactors and Recruit to Retire. We have a nice demo planned. And then Heather and Brian are going to jump into the common HR challenges and what our recommendations are for planning a successful SuccessFactors implementation. And then we'll get to your questions. So who is Invinio LSI? Invinio LSI is the largest independent public sector SAP solution provider. Some of you may know us as our former name, LSI Consulting. But in 2021, we joined forces with Invinio Solutions to become Invinio LSI. Together, we are an award-winning global SAP partner specializing in public sector and media entertainment. And we are very proud of our employees. We have 1,400 employees across the globe and 16 offices. So here you can see a snapshot of some of our US public sector clients. From MIT, where we got our start in 1989, and we really pioneered the early days of SAP implementation for the public sector, to one of our more recent projects, the beautiful state of Hawaii. Each one of these logos really represents, though, the countless hours of collaboration and teamwork with our clients to make sure that their digital transformations could become a reality. So let's introduce our speakers. Like I said previously, I'm Alana Robbins. I am the marketing manager for the public sector at Invinio LSI. Heather and Brian, I send it over to you.
Hey everybody, Heather Kuligowski. I am a SuccessFactors and HCM solution architect at Invinio LSI. I've spent about the last 22 years in the HR technology and the HR cloud space and worked with a variety of clients in both public and private sector. So I'm excited to be here today to share our knowledge and our information with you, with my colleague Brian, and give us our thoughts on how you plan and prep for SuccessFactors implementation.
Thank you, Heather. My name is Brian Myers. I am a SuccessFactors Employee Central Payroll Specialist. I've been in SAP HCM since 1998 when I got my first certification at the Partners Academy. And then I just recently, my recent certification is in EC payroll, which I received last year. A lot of times you'll hear me talk about the glory days of early days of SAP HCM, but to me that helps me just tell the story as to where it has come and where it is today. So you'll hear me kind of telling that story of what I've seen over my 20-year plus career.
Fantastic. Over to you, Heather.
Awesome. Thanks, Alana. Today, as Alana mentioned, we're going to start the session today talking about what intelligent enterprise is and how HR and your departments and SuccessFactors can fit into that landscape. For me, the biggest thing to understand when we're talking about intelligent enterprise is knowing that it's actually a mindset and not necessarily a product. Now, there's products that make this up, but when we're talking about intelligent enterprise, it's really shifting our mindset from the way we used to do it to this new way of thinking. So to give you a basic definition of intelligent enterprise, it is an intelligent, sustainable platform that consistently applies advanced technologies and practices within a business process framework. Or more simply put, it is an organization that embeds modern technologies to drive real-time insights about their operations. So you see this graphic up on the screen, and it's divided into three main components that would make up the core intelligent enterprise. So over on the intelligent suite side, you can see that there's items coming off of it. And those are the big processes that an organization needs to run. Most organizations need to run to operate, right? So you have your network and spend management, you have your digital core, your customer experience, and people engagement when we're talking about HR. So of course, and then we have the digital platform over here on the other side, and those are the things like the applications that you use to run your organization and those processes and the data that feeds into it. But how do you connect your intelligent suite and your digital platform? That's done using intelligent technologies there in the middle. So intelligent technologies, in case you don't know, include things like machine learning, AI, RPA, Internet of Things, and your analytics. These are the things that healthy organizations, innovative organizations use company-wide to detect patterns, use them to predict outcomes, suggest actions, and trigger and execute processes. So they're working towards the automation of repeatable processes so they can focus on other core items within their organization.
And Heather, if I may jump in here, you mentioned mindset, and I will date myself as a Gen Xer. I myself am having to go through this mindset and remind myself that millennials, they are now in their 30s, and you have Gen Z coming in, and they know nothing but information at the tip of their fingers via the internet. They grew up with it, and smartphones. That's all they know. So to me, this I think this mindset, and as you go on, shows that SuccessFactors is adapting to the changing workforce.
Absolutely.
And it's that mindset for people like me. I have to adapt myself. So.
Absolutely. Thanks, Brian. So I want to take Brian and the rest of you through. So we talked about the intelligent enterprise, and we're going to dive a little bit deeper into that as we come down to the core processes and how SuccessFactors supports that. So when we briefly talked about people engagement, but when you're looking at the component, we looked at those components that make up an intelligent enterprise framework. How do we relate that to the actual execution of an HR business process, right? You'll see there's 4 scenarios listed on the screen. They're designed to operate, recruit to retire, lead to cash, and source to pay. First, we're going to be focusing on recruit to retire, but across the intelligent enterprise suite, those are the 4 main topics or groupings of business processes that an organization will use to run their business. So you'll see recruit to retire there, and right below that, that just lists out of the SAP applications that are available. These are the applications that support that recruit to retire process. So SuccessFactors, S/4HANA, Concur, and Fieldglass. And you'll notice there that recruit to retire is smack dab in the middle of all of this. And that's because, excuse me, so you'll see recruit to retire in the middle of all of this. You may have also heard recruit to retire called total workforce management. So one and the same, so interchangeable topic names there. So we're going to talk about recruit to retire or total workforce management. And when I'm saying recruit to retire, say that 3 times fast. What we're really meaning is that when you're looking and engaging with that business processes, you're wanting to empower your organization to understand, manage, and optimize all aspects of your workforce. The internal workforce, it could be external, or whatever your mixture is that makes up your organization. So we're going to talk about this a little bit more in the next slide. We're going to deep dive into this. But I do want to point out that recruit to retire is there in the middle because it's the very heart of and a critical business process of every organization. You have to have people to produce your, if it's a product, public sector, or to manage your private public sector organization.
And if I could add, Heather,
yeah,
if you just to transition from this. So on that slide, it just again talks about the employee experience. But what caught my eye as I get into my mindset is it says recruit to retire. And I feel like the beginning of my career in the 90s and going through the 2000s, it was hire to retire. Maybe, for those of you familiar with SAP HCM, maybe you had org management, maybe you had personal administration, time management, maybe who knows, payroll, and that was it. Let's just get people paid. But now, to me, this mindset is recruit to hire. So it's like it's using a tool to go get this younger talent to your front doorstep and then keeping them happy. And so to me, it's as you see here, hire to retire is still a sub process of it. But to me, the mindset of recruit, it's much more than just core HR and payroll now, in my mind. So anyway, hopefully that's a good lead into this slide here. So
so absolutely, Brian. So recruit to retire, meaning it encompasses more than just, hey, somebody, you don't start the process as you bring them in the door or start creating their employee file, right? This is really the activities that occur to it: workforce planning, succession planning, knowing how you're going to staff your organization. So like Brian was mentioning, we have the recruit to retire business processing grouping, right? And then we're going to take recruit to retire down to what we call sub processes. And here we have, you'll see them in the middle: hire to retire, travel to reimburse, and external workforce. I think these are pretty self-explanatory, but hire to retire, talking about the life cycle of an employee; travel to reimburse, talking about employees' travel requests, getting their expense report done, and getting that information to payroll so they can be paid out for their expenses. And then the last sub-process is external workforce, and that's making sure that you have total visibility and management of your external workforce, because let's face it, in today's work world, it's not just your internal employees. You're most likely having to get some external employees to round out that mixture of your workforce. But as Brian had mentioned, we're gonna deep dive here into the hire to retire process. And again, I'm just gonna set the stage so we're all working from the same definition. But when we're talking about hire to retire in this context, we're talking about the process that enables the end-to-end experience of planning, sourcing, and managing your employees as part of your overall holistic talent strategy. So when you're looking at this, you want to establish your end-to-end business processes that make up the full hire to retire process and how that data flows across your organization's core HR platform. And this could be any kind of data that you need in HR, right? We have the basic data such as employee name ID, those basic things that you have to have on any employee, contact information, contingent worker data, financial data, right? We need to know what cost center they report to. We need to know what fund or grant they're being paid by, right? So we need to be able to collect all of that data and use it across the entire platform. So when we do this and we get that data flowing and not out of silos, we're gonna eliminate a lot of those HR data silos. You're probably experiencing this within your organization. You having to pull multiple reports from different areas, bring them together so that you can report in a harmonized way. Another benefit of organizing or simplifying your data flow is that your IT landscape becomes then more simplified. You're reducing integrations. You can reuse data across different modules or areas without having to recollect it and maintain it in multiple places. But one of the greatest benefits to me is that you're able to join your financial master data and your HR people data in a synchronized real-time way. So managers, line managers, C-suite works off the same data set and can make joint decisions and meet legal reporting obligations in a timely manner. And again, the whole organization is then cohesive in the set of data that they're using to do these activities. So we've taken you a little bit through about the intelligent enterprise, how recruit to retire fits within that model, right? And I want to deep dive a little bit more, and we've mentioned it briefly, but really talk about, when we talk about hire to retire, and it says here the definition is a life cycle of an employee. What is an employee life cycle? So here on the screen, you can see that we've kind of drawn out a typical employee life cycle that is supported by SuccessFactors. Now, and this could translate to any type of HR software that you've used, but in this case, we're going to talk about SuccessFactors. So there's, within that hire to retire sub-processes, Brian and I have divided the areas into 5 more distinct groupings, if you will, of activities, things that occur during the stages of employees' tenure with an organization. So down here, the first step is the recruit and hire, right? You need to be able to find that workforce. You need to be able to find the right talent. You need to be able to fill hard to fill positions, that kind of thing. So recruit, and then you need to be able to onboard them to your organization and make sure that they're empowered to contribute to the organization as soon as possible. Up at the top, we have track and pay. This is your core HR. You need to be able to retain data, track their movements, any type of transfers, promotions, demotions, pay changes. So we do that in the track and pay with Employee Central and Employee Central Payroll. But along the way, we want to be able to do those maybe soft skill talent things, perform and assess and develop and retain. Perform and assess meaning that we need to know how to track employee performance. How do we put guardrails around that so we can reward employees in a fair and sustainable manner, right? Give them the opportunity to check in with their leadership, get feedback, so they become a more well-rounded contributing part of your organization. And then develop and retain, we're talking about, on-the-job learning. We're talking about just learning to enrich people's work experience and personal lives. How do we develop people's careers. We as an organization, how do we make sure that we're going to be staffed in key critical positions going forward so that we don't lose continuity of business? And then the last step down there is retire. So that could be any, we call it retire, but that means any type of separation action, voluntary, involuntary retirement, whatever that looks like. So to set that framework of when we talk about an employee life cycle and success factors, this is really what we're talking about.
And Heather, if I might just make a point that I just recently have given some thought through is, so whenever I first went on to my first SAP HCM public sector project in 2004, so I'd been in SAP for about 7-8 years. But, at the time, there were a lot of employees that had been there their entire career. And this, again, 2004, a lot of them were approaching retirement. Matter of fact, I remember there was one lady, this was like she'd been there with this entity the whole time, and this project was her fade into the sunset. She was going to do this and retire. But I feel like today, though, as the boomers are retiring, and now it's almost you see people jumping from different entities, whether it's private or public. So now there's more of a need to do what you're explaining here, to keep that talent, because versus 30, 40 years ago, when people were just career employees, you need to keep that talent, train them, keep it. So that's just something that I've just, again, part of my own transformation, have, given a lot of thought about. It's just the different people can stay at places at shorter times than they were 30 years ago. So
absolutely,
continue on.
100%. Yeah. Thanks, Brian. So, and to your point, Brian, it's really developing those experiences within your employee life cycle that really make the difference. And that kind of leads us into the next place we want to go, is talking about how SuccessFactors suites of products can support all the transactions, all of the movements, all of the things that happen to an employee in an interactive way. And then SuccessFactors has a module to support all of those things, right? And really, when we look at these, this is what's going to help organizations target and optimize each of these stages to build the best end-to-end process for their organization. So you guys have probably seen this type of slide before, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time in it, but it's really kind of grouping out the different areas of the module, SuccessFactors modules that are available to support wherever you're targeting your current HR needs, right? It could be any point in that life cycle, or it could be all of it. But these are the SuccessFactors modules that really support each of those areas. So when we're talking about core HR, employee, your employee file, getting paid, we're talking about Employee Central Payroll, benefits, maybe Employee Central Service Center, Work Zone for HR, things like that. And then we have all of the talent management suite, which was recruiting and onboarding, performance and goals, comp, learning, succession and development. Pretty sure you guys have probably heard almost all of those. And then we get to time and attendance, so time tracking, absence and leave management. And under that all, you want to be able to collect that data to provide some analytics on it, right? So, we want to be able to use this data we're collecting in an intelligent and useful way to the organization. So now that we've looked at a little bit of an overview, we're going to look at a demo of each of these core areas and give a little bit more of just an overview of each of those modules.
The SuccessFactors suite of products provides an interactive solution that has a module to support and facilitate all the types of transactions that can occur during an employment lifecycle. Let's take a quick look at the modules and see what they do to support the hire to retire process. Employee Central is the SuccessFactors core HR module. It is fully configurable and able to be managed through a simple user interface. EC supports all of your business processes, including core HR functions, employee and manager self-service tools that can automate event selection and workflows, as well as the ability to customize and localize work assignments and payments. SuccessFactors Employee Central Payroll is a cloud payroll management system with capabilities for any type of enterprise. The core system is built using the SAP payroll engine, which is meant to handle highly complex payroll processes. Payroll data is directly interfaced with EC, providing employees instant access to their pay-related data at any time. SuccessFactors Time Management allows the complete workforce to manage and track their attendance. Time includes advanced capabilities to streamline time entry, automate pay rules, and improve approval processes. SuccessFactors recruiting offering includes recruiting management, recruiting marketing, and job posting. Recruiting management is an applicant tracking system where users can manage and automate their recruiting process. This includes creating job requisitions, sourcing candidates, and managing interviews. Job postings to thousands of sites worldwide using recruiting marketing. Career Site Builder allows users to build a portal that is linked directly to recruiting management. And there, recruiters can learn how candidates found the company's job postings and analyze which job sites are the best using recruiting marketing analytics. Its search engine optimization capabilities make it easier for job seekers to find job listings, and users can ensure jobs are posted on the most effective job boards and platforms through job posting. Companies can manage all aspects of employee onboarding, including orientation, paperwork, system access, and equipment provisioning in the onboarding module. HR can use onboarding to assign a buddy to a new hire, and the employee can digitally sign paperwork through onboarding. New hires can access the application before their first day on the job. Performance and Goals is SuccessFactors' employee performance management system. This is where companies can set and cascade goals, manage performance, and perform calibration and 360-degree reviews. Managers can touch base with employees regularly and discuss goals and insights for career growth through the continuous performance management feature. Compensation management can be used for a wide range of compensation types, including pay raises, merit-based compensation, bonuses, short and long-term incentive plans. And users can also access information about eligibility, budgets, and salary rules. Users can create and manage learning experiences for employees, including courses and learning programs through the learning management system. Employees can use the LMS to find and take relevant courses, which are available offline and via mobile. For succession and development planning in SuccessFactors, you can use succession planning and career development planning modules. For succession planning, users can navigate the org chart That includes inputs from talent management, talent review presentations, and calibration sessions to develop a succession plan. For career development, employees can use CDP to plan their career growth options, including finding or being matched with future roles and identifying the competencies that they will need for those roles. SuccessFactors Workforce Analytics allows users to create workforce management plans and analyze data through people analytics. Users can build a wide range of reports and dashboards using data from SAP SuccessFactors and other sources to perform workforce planning and conduct predictive analysis and modeling.
Thanks, Alana. So we set the stage with intelligent enterprise, talked about that recruit to retire business processes, did a little deep dive there. But really where we want to go next is to talk about those HR challenges that every organization faces, including, but then especially within that public sector organizational space. So here on the screen, you can see we've listed some common themes in terms of challenges that public sector HR departments face. They can be anything from attracting and retaining talent, rescaling and upscaling your workforce, or shifting your HR's role from policy enforcement to supporting your worker experience. Historically, HR departments have relied on their HR systems to support organizational directives by creating processes and paperwork to enforce guardrails. But how can we move our HR organization from a policing entity to guiding the employee experience for your organization? Part of that is what we've already talked about, is embracing that intelligent enterprise mindset to look at your business processes, deep dive there, see how you can automate and repeatable processes, how you can automate workflows and approvals to free up your HR organization people to work on other things like how you learn and reskill your workforce, right? Providing more learning opportunities, developing a culture that embraces your individual, embraces their values and feedback. Now, I have to note one of the biggest challenges that any public sector organization is going to face is the budget that they have to do these things in, right? Everybody's increasingly focused on that ROI. So how as a public sector HR organization can you get the most out of your already lean budget? So again, a lot of this circles back to that intelligent enterprise, embracing that new employee experience, how we retain and attract the best talent. So when you're looking at your budget to support these investments, you need to be always in the back of your mind looking at employee experience, automating work processes, and refining your talent management practices. I think the biggest thing that I've seen working with clients in the public sector space is how to embrace that digital innovation. Nobody likes change, right? And we know public sector organizations are going to have some additional hurdles in terms of how we report to our constituency, right? So we need to be able to modernize your operations and platforms to drive greater value, not only to your workforce, but to your citizens. So let's take a look, and we're going to take a look in the next slide, how SuccessFactors embeds that digital innovation for you and provides a modernized, fully integrated platform.
And real quick, Heather, just to add as you do that, to me, paperwork is just part of the employee experience in HR, and whether it's filling out your W-4, maybe entering your time on a hard copy, and the newer employees, employees are like, what is paperwork? What is this? So as you go through this next slide, to me, I like to think of it through a lens of a millennial or Gen Z, not a Gen Xer like myself. So anyway,
absolutely, continue. Yeah. So the first area, because I talked about digital innovation and an integrated platform. So let's take a look at the fully integrated platform that SuccessFactors provides users. So down that left-hand column, you can see different types of HR processes, right? Track to acquire and pay for performance, identify and grow, and educate and develop. To the right of those, you can see that there's boxes with labels in them, right? So these are representative of all of the data that we collect and need to be able to start this get the data we need for this entire process. So let's take a look at attract and acquire, right? So we start with the position data. We have an open position or positions. So we have the attributes that make up that position that we're going to need to use to build out that requisition. So we need to know how many openings there are. We need to know what the level is or the pay range, right? We also need to be able to bring in consistent data from a job posting standpoint to provide consistent job descriptions across the organization. That would be up in that light blue job profile builder framework. So we can use all of this data to start attracting our applicant pool. And then when we post the job, we're asking people to apply. So we're collecting applicant data on that person, like name, contact information. That data then flows over to the new hire data box where we say, great, here's all of the additional information we need on you, like your social security number and your date of birth, all of those things that identify you as the individual so we can pay you in the most appropriate way. And then we take that new hire data, create their employee data or their employee file, right? So that's the full circle of that data. So you're collecting it once, reusing it at other places within the system. So it reduces those data silos. It reduces the duplicate effort of getting, I applied over here, it has all my data, but I have to re-enter all of the new data as a new hire, right? So it then reduces the silos, reduces that duplication effort. So this is true for all of the other processes that you see listed here. And one thing I do want to note, I'm calling it an integrated platform. SAP tends to refer to this as a cross-module interaction, and because they say that because in terms of getting the data connected, it's more setting up, configuring each module to collect the data and send it where it needs to go. So it doesn't require middleware, it doesn't require coding. It's a configurable activity. So the nice thing about these native SuccessFactors interaction points is that they allow organizations to automate key HR processes. Like I said, removing any obvious borders or silos between master data and HR data. And it also builds in aids in the building of the framework to provide precise and reliable real-time data reporting. So like I said, we were going to talk about SuccessFactors as an integrated or cross-module interaction platform. And then I also want to talk about, there's multiple places within SuccessFactors where digital innovation is already embedded, but I just want to point out a couple that are quite common that you'll see. So we can take a look at how there's some intelligent technologies already embedded in SuccessFactors. Thanks, Alana. So the first one here is Job Analyzer. And you may or may not have seen this, but I think this is a really excellent tool for your recruiting teams to be able to use. And what it is it's based off of machine learning algorithms that combines historical applicant data and brings in, it starts collecting data on job postings that are publicly available on job boards and career sites and what have you, and takes all of this data that it has access to, normalizes it into this algorithm, and then is able to provide feedback to the user on things like gender bias language, recommended skills that should be included as part of the job posting, does your salary range meet the market data that is available to it, right? So we're going to take a look at the gender biased language here in the screenshot. You can see that it will take certain word. It will look for words within the job posting, the job description, and say, hey, I think this tends towards the masculine, or it tends towards the feminine, right? Here's things that here's suggestions of changes in the wording to make it more gender neutral for your applicant pool. And then the next thing I want to point out in terms of machine learning and intelligent technologies within SuccessFactors is in the LMS. So there's lots of cool things in the LMS, but one that I particularly really like is the personalized recommendations. Again, this is built-in machine learning and AI services that SAP has provided. You use out of box, you just turn it on and use it. No coding, nothing there. You don't have to create the algorithm. So it's available for everybody to use. But what this algorithm does is it collects data points on the learner to provide personalized recommendations of topics, interesting topics, classes they might be interested in taking, and things like that. So what the algorithm does here is it takes the user's history, it takes course popularity with their peers, it takes into account the user's topics of interest. Like I've looked for leadership development topics quite a bit, so that machine learning knows that that's a topic of interest for me. And then so what it does, it delivers best fit recommendations for that topic of interest specific to that user. So this is maybe the 4 or 5 that I see, and then Brian logs in and sees something completely different because his focus is somewhere else. So again, both this and Job Analyzer are available embedded within SuccessFactors, deployed out of box. So just turn it on and turn on that module, and there you go. It is available. So this is one step closer for your organization to really be able to bring in that modernized platform and really start using embedded technologies like machine learning, AI, advanced analytics. So I hope that was, go ahead, Brian.
I wanted to add, and to me, a lot of this information is out there,
Absolutely.
on the internet, right? But to me, if someone is maybe dissatisfied with how their job's going, they're going to be looking at this kind of stuff anyway. But here, it delivers it to you using AI. So I mean, I just think it's just more of just enhancing the employee experience to keep your people. So
absolutely, right.
it's just so
one of
important now in this day of it. So as versus people that were going to be lifers, back.
Yeah. Right. And one of the basic expenses in organizations is retraining employees after somebody has left, right? So being able to cross-train employees, being able to provide, to be able to not only develop somebody for a specific role, but be able to meet their interests and expanding their career, which then expands their interest as as a person. So it's not just about career development; it's about person development. Absolutely. So we want to shift gears here because we've talked a lot about SuccessFactors, how it supports your HR organization. But part of this is what we wanted to take Brian and I's combined experience in our years of doing this, and especially within the public sector organization, our recommendations to you on how to prepare and plan for a successful SuccessFactors implementation. I've been saying success a lot, SuccessFactors successful. So, but we do want it to be successful for you guys. So we're going to go through about 3 topics here to really provide our input and our experience in these areas. So first is Brian's going to talk about project stakeholders buy-in and how that's key to a project. I'm going to talk about project alignment, and then Brian's going to wrap it up with project integration.
Okay, so I believe the next slide will speak to that first topic, project stakeholder buy-in. And I'm sure many, if not all of you, are rolling your eyes and saying, of course, Brian, of course this is a big deal. But this is kind of a trend that we've seen in that for any of you like me that's career SAP HCM person, I'll be somewhere and someone will say, hey, I just upgraded my personal computer. Brian, you're a computer guy. Can you come take a look at this? And I go, whoa. If you need a SAP HCM, I'm your person. But they're going through a technology upgrade, and that technology, whatever it is that's um, negatively impacting their computer, it needs to be ironed out. It needs to be learned and understood. So I compare that to maybe the early or the mid 90s, at least whenever I got into SAP HCM. The technology was brand new, it was coming up from Germany, and a lot of project challenges, the theme was technology, whether SAP's delivered technology or lack of standard technology, as well as the consultants, how much of the technology do they really know? And then as it matured, just like any technology out there, it you heard that theme less and less about technology being a challenge. Well, then all of a sudden, SAP acquires SuccessFactors in 2012, and I go on to my first SuccessFactors practice in 2014, and I felt it was kind of similar. It's new technology, but and you would hear challenges out there that of new technology. Well, we're in 2022 now, so I've watched this, and I'm a big integration person, being in payroll, and I've watched it, and the solution has really matured. It's been a decade now, so the theme now is not, when you hear about project challenges out there, I'm hearing it's organizational acceptance. And so that brings us to the slide of stakeholder buy-in. We're seeing where the technology is ready to roll, brand new shiny system, but the organization, whether it's lack of communication or many reasons that many of us on this webcast are aware of, there could be challenges. So, you know, to address that new trend of, well, technology is pretty spot on. Success Factors is great. Our payroll parallel testing. I'm a payroll guy. Our payroll testing is spot on with accuracy, but the organization is just not ready to run this thing. So just ensure that at the beginning of the project planning, just contractual responsibilities, make those clear. Don't assume anything. I'm bad sometimes, like I've been doing this forever. Of course the customer does this, and then suddenly they don't, and my assumption gets myself in trouble. So uh lesson learned: be clear about who is doing what. I think of the RACI, the responsible, accountable, consulted, informed, and do that early and often. And you can see at the bottom of the slide there, exploration, deployment, training. Do it the whole way. There's no, oh, I think I'm gonna take this particular phase off. Heather said earlier, Success Factors is not a lift and shift. Whether you're a current SAP HCM project, or maybe you're brand new to, SAP Success Factors is brand new to you. It's from the start of the project all the way to the deployment. It's these integrations are there, they're the mature, but you need to understand them. Your users need to understand them, understanding and training. And then ultimately, I find that payroll comparison testing tends to be at the very end, but you need stakeholder eyes on that last bit of it. So anyway, the takeaway is, we're seeing the technology is great, and there's always going to be additional functionality as the life of the product continues, but it's very mature right now. And so it's now get that organization's buy-in, and together the technology and the org buy-in, that's what's going to get you that successful project. Back to you, Heather.
Absolutely. Thanks, Brian. So I'm going to kind of dive deeper from what Brian was talking about and talk about project alignment. And when I say this, I divide it up into 3 alignment areas: scope alignment, business process alignment, and resource alignment. And everybody's kind of saying, hey, no, duh, Heather, we have to do this, right? We need to know. But I find that sometimes organizations, the driver for it is known to some people, but to others, maybe it's less clear. So this is really why we want to focus on scope alignment. really defining that strategic direction of the project is going to be key critical, as well as your project team knowing what that is. So yep, it came down from IT that we needed a new SaaS software platform, right? So maybe that's one of those scenarios. But you have to ask yourself, what are the benefits you're going to receive from this new platform? What pain points can we expect to resolve by implementing this platform, right? So being clear and taking time to identify those things, past just, hey, IT told me I had to do this, or it came down from somewhere else in the organization. The answers to those questions are really going to shape your desired outcome or the end goal of the implementation, because you need to be able to identify what success looks like, right? Is it we now have a new recruiting process? We've reduced time to fill from 30 days to 15 days. So whatever that is for your organization, you really need to be able to identify it and answer it, and have your project team buy into that, right? So everybody knows what that end goal is. Once you do the scope alignment, this really, and to Brian's point, having that racing, this really filters down to that business process alignment and resource alignment. When we talk about business process alignment, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because you're like, well, I've been on this HR system for 15 years, 20 years. We basically built and refined our HR processes for the system we're on. But something to keep in mind with SuccessFactors is that SuccessFactors is a SaaS solution, so software as a service, meaning that it's really built on best practice methodology, which does not really drive to heavy customization. So you can customize solutions, but really the attractiveness is that it's built on best practices that hundreds of organizations can execute out of the box and be successful, right? So why I'm telling you this is because we want SuccessFactors to not, it's not a simple swap from, hey, I was on this platform for a while, now I'm going to this. Or you may have heard that term lift and shift, like I lift my processes from here and I shift them over here and I don't change anything. Well, this is kind of a trip up for some organizations that I've worked with, right? They're saying, well, this is the way I've done it, so I'm going to continue doing it this way in this new type of software. So really taking a deep dive into your HR processes before the project even begins to say, are there things that we know, I'm just going to take an example. Currently, our process is to have paper-based applications for requisition expire at 5 p.m. because that's what time my office used to close, right? Now in SuccessFactors, there's no way to, it's already automated for you. The posting drops at 12 p.m. or 11:59 p.m. the day it expires. There's no way to change that. So taking a look at, okay, well, we have it set at 5 o'clock in our rules. Is that going to work for us in the future and going to the software? And then the last part of this is your resource alignment. What is that mix of your project team is going to, how to make your project successful, right? We know in public sector organizations, you're going to require project participants from various groups and entities. So you really want to be able to identify the impacted lines of business, bring in your project management representatives, your functional and technical users. And so once you have that correct mix of resources, then you want to be able to align that team back up to your strategic direction or your scope alignment, right? So they all know what the desired outcome is, what those project goals are, and really what the guidelines are that they need to use to be successful, not just for the project, but for an individual on the project. So you'll see that last bullet there is the decision-making tree. And this is another key critical area that I've seen can be a little bit fuzzy with public sector organizations, is who is really going to responsible for making that decision. Is it that line of business SME? Is it the steering committee? Is it somebody else? So really knowing who makes the decision and empowering that person to make the decision is really going to make your resource alignment activities more fruitful. And then our last one that we want to talk about is project integration. So I'm going to hand this back over to Brian.
Thank you. And I could have really blended project integrations with the stakeholder buy-in, if you will. And the reason is, as you look at the integrations to other systems, that's just three there. The bullet points: finance to HR, HR to time, and time to payroll. So, here in the public sector, the labor distribution and cost assignments to expenditures is so important that, to me, the upfront, one integration is make sure your financial objects are accurately being loaded to Employee Central, the core HR module, and then make sure that onboarding, the recruiting and onboarding, make sure that integration is working. Then core HR to the time system, core HR to EC payroll, which is a payroll person. I love that integration. It's I've come a long way since 2014 when I first worked on it. That point to point is fantastic, and uh, it's going to a payroll engine that's been around for, if you're looking at the US payroll engine, that for public sector, it's been around since the mid 90s. So that thing is tried and true, and there's thousands of people using that. And then lastly, from an integration point that you really want the SMEs and stakeholders to be aware of is, it's a it's a HR project, or it's a payroll project. Well, you know what? Let's make our accountants happy. And you don't want to forget about getting those payroll postings to your target finance system, whether it's an SAP finance system, or maybe you have S4 HANA implementation coming up, like on a phased approach or something like that. But do know, if you do go, even if it's you have those technologies that have been around for a long time, like iDoc technologies, if we were to help you build these integrations. And of course, with Invenio LSI, our secret weapon is our finance practice. So when we go into something like this, whether it's a big bang or usually it's phased, we're taught, we already have a natural dialogue with them and helping us with the integration to our target finance system and to make sure it's good. So just whether it's system integration testing, UAT testing, payroll comparison testing, just learn how those integrations work. They're mature, but that doesn't mean you can just let them go. Focus on those. Again, it's not lift and shift. So I think that's what I basically wanted to get for this slide.
Awesome.
So
thanks, Brian. So that's what Brian and I have for you today. We were really excited. Hopefully this information and our perspective and our background has really been helpful for you guys. So I'm going to pass it back over to Alana.
Thank you both so much. That was fantastic. I feel like I learned so much in that presentation. So we'll open it up for questions. I know that we've got 2 minutes to spare here, but we are happy to stay on and answer any additional questions that come up. Right from the get-go, we have 2 that have come in, so let's start with those. All right, so let's see. All right, do you find a big bang or a phased rollout as the bigger trend in public sector HCM?
I could take that one, because that probably, I think I said phase a while ago. So so Heather, I look to you for your agreement, but I would say phased. At Invenio LSI, we're seeing phased. And you mentioned earlier, there's budget constraints that depending on what your public entity is, they differ. But we tend to see that. And maybe a phased is SuccessFactors and S4 HANA Finance, or maybe the phased is core HR and talent, and then maybe later on we'll do EC payroll. There's different ways to do it. And in the end, the takeaway is just make sure that the resources, the staffing on each phase is not siloed. I think you used the word siloed earlier, Heather. You know, implement, but think down the road, next phase. What are they going to need? You can't predict it, but just keep it in mind. So the trend we're seeing is phased. So budget and a lot of times resourcing constraints, right, on the customer side.
Yeah.
Hope that.
Great. All right, let's see. For existing SAP HCM customers, are there other options to SuccessFactors?
Yeah, there
Can
are.
I take that one?
I think Brian has, Brian, go right ahead.
Well, sorry, and you certainly add some color commentary, but we were just talking to a potential customer about this, and for those of you that are in consulting, you know, well, it depends. So there are various options. If an existing HCM customer is not ready to go to SuccessFactors, many of you have probably read out there's plenty of information, but sometimes they contradict each other. We have our story straight, but that's another webinar, I think. So
we could probably take another hour on that one for sure.
easily. So
More to come.
So so if you guys want to put that as a suggested topic in the survey, we would love to be able to get back on with you guys and talk about that.
Fantastic. Well, I think that concludes all of our questions. And well, thank you, Heather and Brian, for your amazing information and for sharing all of that good content with us. Really, truly, round of applause to both of you.